Whoa, no way. I didn't expect this kind of turnout. I bet only like 3 of you were bots. I don't even know why anybody would want to tune back in after my last video ending with a zoom in on Wesker's secret agent. But hey, here you are. Wait a second. I know why you're here. You just want more cop. You know what? That's fine. I don't care anymore. You want meat? Well, I got some meat for you right here. Run that intro.
Golden Light, a game developed in the rough streets of the Unity engine by Mr. Pink, which, despite its honorific prefix of Mr. implying a singular entity, is in fact not a singular entity, but a duo. The pair go by the handles of Mr. Pink and Mr. Schlong. Oh god, I get it. Pink Schlong. Oh, what the hell. They are, at least from what I can tell, are based in Russia. Now, I don't know much about Mr. Schlong, but Mr. Pink has a YouTube channel that he uploads to from time to time, and a Twitter too. And a Discord? Maybe? Honestly, I'm not sure. I've joined it 2 times now, and both times it seemed to have vanished from my Discord's channel list. Most of it was in Russian anyway, so I hope I'm not missing out on much. On a side note, if you find this game interesting at all, go check him out. As I'm currently writing this script, he has just put another game on early access in Steam, so he's defo an active game dev. According to Mr. Pink, the guy, not the group, the game had a rather fast development, and was off to the Steam early access ocean to claw its way out to Senpai's attention, like in 6 months. Thanks in part to them using the classic indie game dev trick of just throwing mechanics at it and keeping what was fun, the game kinda snowballed building itself. However, it was stated that one snag in development was when Mr. Pink, by popular demand, attempted to add co-op to the then single-player experience. Despite what must have been an arduous task, it seems to have adhered well enough. I couldn't test this mode out myself, of course, but I've heard it works, so there's that. To get the marketing wheels rolling, they reached out into the void that is the internet, and got the attention of some YouTubers and Twitch streamers, and Mr. Pink, being a Russian YouTuber himself back in the day, harnessed his following, and that is how they got my attention. Probably. I don't really remember when or how I first came in contact with this turgid game of meat and violence, but I'm happy I did. Leaving the cesspit of early access to a full release on March 11th, 2022 for $19.99 on Steam, to some very loving acclaim, it's safe to say it has gotten Senpai's attention. But sadly, it seems that this may be the duo's last game together, as Mr. Schlong, mid-development of their next title, Mech Punk, has seemingly cut ties with Mr. Pink. So, other than that one DLC, I doubt there will be a Golden Light 2. And post beating it, I think that's okay. Taking inspiration from many avenues, some obvious and some obscure, has lended this game some interesting results in terms of content. And I'm happy they didn't shy away from the obvious ones, as they come off as Easter eggs for the players that know, or nods towards the source material that inspired and helped this game's development in terms of inspiration. Graphically, Golden Light presents itself in a way that I can only describe as noisy, at least at first glance. Looking deeper into its dark, wet, pulsating aesthetic, I came to find myself feeling oddly nostalgic for an older time due to its antiquated models, but invigorated by its choice of filter. I got the vibe that Mr. Pink at some point said, "Hey, what if this game only pixel?" And threw this filter on just to see what it looked like. In my opinion, it worked out well. The noise filter gave a nice grainy, dirty, dank feel that at first makes you want to pluck those cute little oculi out from within the nooks of your skull that keeps them. But after they adjust, it's sorta like it has a suspension of disbelief quality to it. I see it as sort of a cognitive lube, if you would, in the simplest way possible. It's so noisy and hard to see that it forces you to focus harder than you normally would have to, and before you know it, you're completely immersed in a meaty, dark world, to the point where you don't even notice the noisy nature of what is being fed to your light sensory organs. Or to put it even more simply, it's so noisy you have to focus. Because you're so focused, you become immersed. The character models in this wonderland of flesh are just as odd as you would imagine. Sometimes I would wonder if what I was seeing was a glitched model due to the procedurally generated nature of the maps, or if they were meant to be such twisted messes, or mayhaps a mixture of both. Low poly indie games are everywhere, so this was a breath of fresh air. The polys aren't high enough to blow your mind or anything, but the models are nice enough to get the job done. Oddly enough, the filter, that is optional mind you, in my opinion doesn't take away from the models, but in fact adds to them. The game looks way too plain without it. Maybe it does take away from 3D rendered game assets, but in a way that makes them appear better than what they are, by obscuring their flaws? At any rate, most things have a nice, wet shine to them, and there is a bloom that isn't overused, mostly just used for the field, from what I've noticed, and dark places are just dark enough to make you feel very unsafe. The overall look of this game is pretty consistent. That doesn't mean you'll be spending all your time in one setting though, as there are other themes that run the gamut from industrial meatpacking facility to a movie theater and a few other places. So the gut has some variety. Right when you start getting bored of one place, chances are you are about to beat it and you'll find yourself in a new setting. So if you think where you are is getting a bit stale, hang in there. Spec requirements aren't too high, the listed minimum being an operating system of Windows 7? I forgot all about you. An i5 4th gen? No way. Memory of 4 gigabytes RAM? Oh, okay, basically a potato is the minimum. And the recommended minimum being an operating system of Windows 10, a processor of i5 4th gen or higher. That's weird. I guess it just doesn't take much. 8 gigabytes of RAM, a graphics card that has 2 gigabytes. Basically, kind of a potato again, I guess. Now, if you didn't know, that last video I made destroyed my last computer. Twice. So I've been running this game on a VTuber's PC, so my experience was flawless, thanks to a PC that is way overkill for this title. So for me, I've got no performance complaints. It works well. But I will say, I tried to run it on my laptop, and it was ugly. So I'd wager you'd want at least the recommended requirements. And now I wonder what the hell my laptop is running with, because these aren't the most brutal requirements. I think most people with an entry-level PC should have more than an okay playthrough. Just keep your wits about you, if you plan on running it on a lower-tier potato setup like my laptop, I guess. The gameplay loop seems obscure and kinda hard to pin down at first. Or at least it was for me, but again, I'm a dum-dum. You eventually figure out that it is just as simple as you'd think. You plunge into the gut and go as far as you can without getting killed off by a CRT computer monitor, some kind of face-hugging meat baby, or killing yourself by disrespecting the fetus from Eraserhead. There are a multitude of shapes in which your inevitable demise could come in. Now, once you have died, because you will die, you'll respawn in the Eternal Fields, from where you will be met by a bike. Man. Meat bike. Skull bike? Meatsicle skull bike. Either way, Snout, as he dubs himself, is your transportation. He can get you from place to place kinda fast, and if you got the gold, he can fast travel you to where you should be going next. Or at least the general area where you should be focusing your time. For you see, the Eternal Fields are more about exploration. Now, back to the loop. When you die, you either roam the fields looking for mementos and weapons to help bolster your next run, or you plunge right back into the depths of the gut and continue your quest. And this is where I got both confused and discouraged my first time playing. I thought that you had to start that biome over. But no, I was wrong. It picks you up from where you left off. So, if you were on a level that had a part of your waifu, you can rest assured upon getting digested in some musty corner of a bathroom, you'll have another shot at retrieving your girl's leg. Or what have you.
Now, let's say you made it elbow deep, like all in a level's guts, and it's so hard. You can't possibly last long enough to even get your hands on an exit. Well, you kinda got some options. NPC options. You can talk to a phone guy, I guess. And this phone guy allows you to reset the depth at which you are currently, according to the world the phone guy is at, for he is around the entrance to every level. You can try and bribe the gut by feeding a tree half of your gold. This makes mobs less in number and in aggression on your next run, depending on how much gold you hand over, I guess. Or, what I did, in combination to giving up my gold to a tree, roam the fields looking for mementos and weapons to try and brute force my next run. As one of the bigger factors in whether or not you'll survive your next crawl is if you have a good build. If you somehow manage to build a good enough set of skills while on an expedition to not get completely destroyed by a clutter of meat-possessed objects, then you can pat yourself on the back for being lucky enough to get a good build. And by build, I'm mostly referring to the mementos. You can think of mementos as like a kind of deck building aspect in this game. You can collect Polaroids of what I assume to be memories that carry various traits. Some great, some awful, and some, neat. Now, depending on what you get, because you can't back out once you pick one up, you must choose. You can end up with a truly cursed disposition, or find yourself in a tanky Doom guy build. I'm not so sure if I can find the footage, once had a build that basically made me tiny but fast as fuck, and close my eyes every time I aimed. Those were dark times. But that's just an example. It could have been worse, I suppose. Thankfully, there are objects, albeit hard to acquire ones, for you to keep what mementos you like and lobotomize the ones you don't, with some rare items known as the lobotomizer and golden amber. I'll let you put 2 and 10 together on that one. In my opinion, you do well to keep pet mementos, or anything that gives you HP or preserves HP, as preservation is key, but pets, because you're lonely. Why else would you be here watching this video? No, but for real though, pets can fend off some meaty mobs, and late game, I wish I had a horde of them to take hits and virtually piranha my way through to the exit. But alas, I opted for laser eyes and thief hands, and I don't know, some other stuff I'm sure. At the time of writing this script, I haven't played this game in like a month, and I'm the type of person who doesn't remember yesterday, let alone a month's worth of yesterdays, so I can't really tell you what I ended up keeping by the end of my playthrough. But what I do remember is having laser eyes, and wishing I had more pets, I guess. For the most part, the game is sort of what it claims to be, reverse prop hunt. And this is true to an extent. You will find yourself hiding from props, essentially, and running your sweet meaty butt off to the exit in a feverish panic when you get the last key for the floor you're on. I found these moments chaotic and probably the most rewarding, if you get to the exit that is, for these are also probably the most dangerous points. If you don't know where the exit is, it's not hard to imagine why you die on the last key for that floor. Scattered around the grotesque world of the gut, you'll see notes reminiscent of messages you'd see in a Dark Souls game from other players. Only, these aren't from other players.
These are from either the gut itself or from what I could only surmise as random people that have no doubt gotten lost and perished within the confines of the gut's moist and fleshy corridors. These notes are a bit of a multi-purpose feature in this game. They serve as a bit of tutorial in the early game and offer updates and hints on the gut's settings, if you will. For instance, every consumable item in the gut gets a random effect added to it per respawn. If the Twin Crows item did HP regen before you died, it's almost guaranteed to not do that same status effect upon your rebirth and entry into the gut on your next run. You won't know what it does unless you either find that item again and use it, or find a note that tells you what it does. So it's almost always worth picking up the notes you see scattered around. The other functions they seem to serve are more narrative, and a way for the gut to troll you. They sometimes have hints of what the game's underlying plot or lore might at least be about, and sometimes it's just the gut sending you an angry letter. But more often than not, it's probably the frantic ramblings of strangers. These I often thought might actually be randomly generated as well, for they seem to be ad-libs and very sporadic in nature. Sometimes these letters will even offer you a gift. That gift can be mobs all of a sudden coming after you, or a bit of HP regen. I vaguely remember getting a shotgun this way too, but honestly, I can't remember for sure. It's a neat little anticipation-inducing thing to bump into, I suppose. Like a lottery of sorts. Even though these notes seem to add a layer of depth to the exploration, they do get rather repetitive to the point where, later in the game, I found myself completely ignoring them, and outright forgetting about them altogether.
Please don't go. It's great having you here. Don't do it to me!
Still neat, though. Oh, hey, look at that. You made it to a kind of awkward part in this review where I wanted to sort of, I don't know, break down what the story was, and I'm not quite sure how to segue into it. So instead of abruptly just going into a story time, I thought I'd at least give you guys a heads up. Yeah, so it's pretty much what I have gathered somewhat at the time of reviewing the game and writing up the script as to what the hell the story was trying to tell me in this game. So if you don't want any spoilers, I guess they would be spoilers. I don't know. Plot's kind of like weird. You can go ahead and skip to a time. I don't know what time that's gonna be, but I guess I'll probably like flash it on the screen. You skippity doo dah there, and you'll skip the story time. I don't know why you would want to skip story time with mana. It's not like I'm bad at reading or anything. I don't know. It's on you. I'll give you a couple seconds to decide. This is a story of a writer who met a girl. A girl he fell madly in love with. Literally. But due to some serious agoraphobia, their relationship with this woman became more and more strained. They wanted to stay in their little studio apartment and write what one could only assume to be a book. But they were stuck in a pit of severe writer's block, hence how they even met the girl in the first place. In an alleyway, somewhere behind a bar or a nightclub, she remarks about maybe having too much to drink and how the night out was fun. It is unclear if this was your first meeting or date, or if this was the one time you decided to go out. She wanted you to live a little, but for you, that was a lot. You started drinking because you can't even seem to write a paragraph. Your dream of becoming a writer slipping farther and farther into the bottle. You take a break and try music instead, but that goes nowhere. She tells you that she wants what's best for you and her.
She loves you and wants you to broaden your horizons. One day you catch her arguing with someone outside your apartment, but you can't bring yourself to open the door to intervene. Who was that other guy? You can't help but feel a jealous seed begin to sprout deep within you. The signs over time begin to make things more and more clear as the bottles, cans, and litter start to pile up around you. She sleeps soundly in your bed, but for some reason you're up, and there are flames licking the walls around the two of you. You don't really recall why or even how you find yourself in this situation, but she won't wake up. You black out. Eventually, you seek medical help. You want to forget something that you remember, but remember that you forgot. A repressed memory come to the surface. The doctor tells you this will only hurt for a little bit. As he revs a surgical drill in your face, immediate regret fills you as flashes of your memories flicker into the void. You see it. The reason why you did what you have done. You followed her one day and found her in the throes of ecstasy with that strange man. It broke you. They didn't notice you there. You left. You did something horrible in your blacked out state. Horrible things that are now bubbling to the top. Things that your tortured soul now runs from. She's in pieces now, but you can't put her back together. A monster took her. But for some reason, you think you can piece it all back together, and that it'll all be okay. Is she in pieces a metaphor for the now broken relationship? One that we are now trying in vain to Elmer's back together? Is the monster, the gut, a symbol of your rage? Or the other person that took her away from you? It's a jumbled mess, I know, but this was kinda what I got from what was provided to me during my playthrough. It's more than likely completely out of order and super wrong, but it's how my brain interpreted the story. And little did I know, I got the neutral ending by accident. Something I've always strived for in games with multiple endings. Weird. As there are apparently 4 different endings, so I'll just leave that where it is. You chooms can find a rest. I got other games to review. Golden Light, as I see it, is a game that is well worth the attention of anyone who is into surreal or Lynchian-esque horror games. It's no Silent Hill by any means, as this game just misses the mark in terms of spooky atmosphere, in favor for more wacky and surreal flavors. That's not to say it is completely void of the aesthetic, as this game definitely could be categorized as body horror, but I just didn't find myself all that unnerved or scared. Though, there were definitely some punctuations of tension. And the cathartic effects of reaching a destination with hell on your heels was something I haven't felt in a while. At least not to such a consistent nature as this game somehow delivered. Mr. Pink and friends, I guess, may not have made their next $1 million indie hit, but I can easily say it's not hard to see this game being a cult classic. I'll never forget my time in this universe, the rush of bolting frantically towards safety as absolute butt-clenching adrenaline clouds my mind and heightens my senses back to primal Oonga-Boonga nature. The complete bewilderment of being in an alien world with sort of broken English charm, full of twisted masses. It's obviously humble roots that creep into it, in the form of uncommon jank, reminding me that humans made it. Although I could only play this title for spurts of an hour or 2 at a time, I wouldn't dare call it a bad game, just an exhausting one. One that in some cases had me wandering aimlessly trying to build a deck of memories, to help me beat the last level for 30 minutes, only to be crushed by a boss in 10. Should you play this game, know that it is most definitely not for everyone. It is not an easy game, and sometimes it's not even a rewarding one, but it is a good one. I may not have covered everything I wanted to here about this game, and I'm sure I left a lot of things out. But if you're truly interested, go check it out. It's a wild one. Thank you for making it to the end of this here review. It's been a long time coming, but your boy's a busy one, and it is what it is. Special thanks goes to Ishra Holyspell, as always, for letting me use her VTubing rig. You can find her on Twitch, she's a goofy sweetheart. And Main Quest Matthew for inspiring me to continue making YouTube videos, because he still hasn't made one yet. As long as you don't have a channel, bud, I feel like I'm better than somebody at something for once. Thank you. See you around in Season 1, Episode 3 for, well, look at that intro and tell me in the comments what game you think it will be, because community interaction is key, and I'm trying to sell my soul to Mammon here.